And we are live. We are hot. We're a hot mic. Well, hello, Glue Troopers. Max and Max's Models here with another stimulating YouTube safe live stream. It's half the fun and twice the calories of the original one. So, why do I still have a media source up here? Did not turn off the. Okay. So before we get started, I was one of the Glue Troopers had sent me some old 8mm footage of his dad building on a model airplane back in 1943, and he asked me if I could show it, and I think I used it in the video. I ran around looking for it. I don't know where I put it, so I have to get that another time. Maybe we can do that next week. I don't know where I put it. That's one of the problems, you know, with a computer. One wrong button click and you've sent your video. You know, you'll never find it. You're like, where in the bowels of the heartless machine did my video go? And or my picture or whatever. By the way, guys, proving that ineptitude with electronics is limitless, I managed to delete my entire photo gallery on my phone, which went to the trash, and I started recovering pictures. But I was like, you know, that's just embarrassing. So let's see. Before we get running, let's get a voice check on everybody.
Voice checking the voice.
Okay,
voice,
Steve.
voice.
Yeah, Ken, you're blasted through. Steve.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And Mark.
Hi there from Oregon.
Yeah, Mark in Oregon. So some of you guys, your YouTube channel still Mark from Montana, isn't it?
Yeah, that's where I'm from. Yes, Mark from Montana. I'm not changing the address on YouTube. That's over my pay grade too.
Well, Mark, why don't you give us? We're going to be talking about building World War I models, and those of you who've seen some of Mark's work know he does some of the greatest ones. In fact, while we're talking about it, I'll put a couple of pictures up here. And Mark, why don't you give us just a real quick background about your building expertise and experience, et cetera, and all that good stuff.
Okay. Well, we'll call it experience rather than expertise. The reason I got involved, love World War I models, is probably due to geography, where I grew up in a small community many, many decades ago, the sort of town that did not have a hobby store, didn't have a toy store. It had a 5 and 10 store and a little drugstore. And for some reason, the drugstore, which might have anywhere from 15 to 20 models at a time over in the small little toy section, walking back there, maybe I was in 2nd or 3rd grade, and I saw a couple of Aurora World War I kits. And the box art caught my eye, and I took a look at it, and it was like, oh, I got to have one of those. I think that was probably because it clicked with something about when I was reading the encyclopedia section of aircraft and I saw the color pictures and illustrations. I was just really drawn to those old biplanes. So some of my very, very first models were those Aurora, that Aurora set that came out. Those planes came out first issued in the late 50s, mid 56 or 58, and then a few more in the early 60s, repackaged and reboxed countless times. But they were some of my favorites, and I started building those as a kid, and then graduated on to other stuff, other types of models. But I always had a fondness. And then skipping ahead more decades than I really wanted to talk about, but many, many decades, as I'm perusing YouTube to see what's out there with respect to slot cars, which is something I did as a kid too, and just taking a look at slot car channels, seeing there really weren't that many in the scheme of things, but I started seeing modeling channels. And it was about then, Max, that I discovered your channel and started watching it. So we're talking 7, 8 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
And that said, you know, you haven't. I said, Mark, you haven't built a model, a static model now in 50, plus years. So I said, I'm going to get those Aurora models. I'm going to get the whole collection and build them. And that's what I did.
In fact, you and Trey just did a group build, right?
Paint, and and no fingerprints and thin glue and all that good stuff,
What,
and
didn't you and Trey just do a Gotha build for the Aurora kits?
I'm sorry?
Didn't you and Trey just do a Gotha build with Aurora kits?
Well, I finished mine. I don't know if Trey's on. I'm still waiting to see if he finishes his. Is Trey on? I don't have my channel on.
He usually is. I haven't noticed him in the comment thread yet.
I don't see anything yet.
Yeah.
But
He'll probably show up soon.
He'll be along later, I'm sure.
That was actually, I met Trey through your channel, Max.
Okay.
We started communicating and calling and texting and sharing photos and little gifts to each other of spare parts that we didn't need or thought might be helpful to one another. And he, I don't know, a couple months ago he said, he's got a good memory because he said, why haven't you built that Gotha bomber? And I had forgotten that I'd actually, of all the Aurora kits, that was the one that I had acquired, and it was still sitting in my stash because I said, that's just going to be too damn big. I don't have room.
And that's a 148 scale.
And that's 148 scale, yeah. But anyway, he said, let's do a buddy build. I've got one. So we started that, and it was actually a lot of fun to actually do it and see if I could almost make it look like a grown-up model. I sure as heck don't think I could have built it as a 10 or an 11. Even though the Aurora kits were simple, they were designed for middle school kids. I think most of them to build.
But later on, the KB kits were a little more detailed, though, right?
Well, the only thing that was different, they put in a vacuum form terrain, and they added a rigging guide, and they changed the color of the plastic, and they got rid of I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember if they removed the engravings, I think, of the markings, but it's the same molds.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I know because I had both an original and I had a KB. I had to use both of them. That's a longer story in order to get one build done. But what are the interchangeable parts?
What are the scales of the three models in this picture?
Okay. The little one's 1/72. That's a Revell. Circa, I think those came out around 1965 originally. Revell reboxed them and reissued them for decades. In fact, I think they still do.
Yeah.
Revell, Germany. The middle one over to the left there is an Edard, the Czech company, which makes, in my mind, the best 148 scale World War I aircraft. And then the big one is actually a Roden kit, 1/32 scale.
How was your luck with the Roden kit? Because I built some of them, and they can be challenging.
I have about 6 or 7 1/72 scale Roden kits that will never get built because I did wrestle one through. I just had a really miserable experience with it. The old ones are really mushy styrene. This big one, I think they upped their game with better quality plastic.
Good.
And actually, this went together really nicely.
Well, since you brought up the quality of plastic, I'll jump on a real quick tangent and we'll loop right back. When I was doing research for my recent Red Star models video and Novo and Frog and all that stuff, I found out that I wound up somehow going on the tangent of how styrene is measured, the quality, the grade and everything. And it's measured by how much, how many milliliters you can inject per minute and that kind of stuff. And apparently for plastic models, you have to, I forget what it is, you have to be able to put 35, I think it's, I want to say milliliters or deciliters, whatever it is, per minute into a mold for it to flow, for it to be the right viscosity. And the stuff they were using in the Eastern Bloc had a rating of about 4. So basically, they were pushing molasses through those things very low grade. So that dovetails with what you were saying about that. So they've come a long way now, but back in the 70s and before and up to the 90s, they were just, the quality of styrene was abysmal. So we've got these three airplanes, and you do also a really nice job of painting figures. And I was curious how you. Now, I think these are 1/32nd scale. The two pictures you sent me of the pilots, I believe. You have any special technique for painting your pilots? Because that's my wife does beautiful, because she does the dolls. She does beautiful faces even on a small scale. And half the time I have to just hand mine off to her and just go, here. And she uses pastel pencils and things like that. But I'm the kind of guy who just blobs flesh on the face, and when it hardens, I just go around the flying uniform and cap with brown and go, they'll never be able to see it under the canopy. But these are World War I airplanes. You see everything.
Right. Yeah. I watched a lot of, the source of all hobby knowledge is YouTube, isn't it now?
Yeah, really.
So I watched a lot of how to paint figures, and most of that came from, I'm going to call it the wargaming world, the miniature painters who are sort of more into science fiction and fantasy, but they've got really good tutorials. Mm-hmm. And so the basics that I just follow a set pattern, which is always I prime the figures, whether they're plastic or resin, in black primer.
In black, okay.
Then I do a zenithal prime with white, shooting it down, so I get basically to leave the black in the shadows,
okay.
So it sort of gives definition. I always use acrylic paint for figures. It's fragile, but you can thin it down, and of course then you just put it on real thin shades, and I just follow a very simple pattern, which is a base color. Choose whatever skin tone you want, and instead of going with something that's called light skin tone, I basically will take white or a beige color and then mix it with my base color, and I will use so the transitions won't be so stark, and then swipe down the bridge of the nose, highlight the tops of the cheeks, do the forehead. I will shade the cheekbones. And the thing I practice all the time, regardless of the scale, is painting the eyes. So it's funny because my hand doesn't shake when I paint eyes, but you put a pair of tweezers in my hand with a small piece of plastic, and that plastic will fly across the room.
Yeah, I seem to have that same problem.
I don't have the yips with the paintbrush. So that's the basic technique. Always prime, zenithal prime, and thin coats of acrylic. I know some people will use enamel for figures, but I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it just because I find it too thick for my
I also find it takes forever for the stuff to harden.
Yeah. And acrylic is very forgiving. That's the other thing.
Wipe it off pretty easy.
Just have a brush nearby with some water and wash it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so we had a glue trooper ask me just before the show. He said, we're never giving Lindberg any love. And I was like, everybody picks on Lindberg. But they didn't make very many biplanes. In fact, only a couple of World War I aircraft, the Jenny and the SE-5, I think. There may be some others that I didn't have a chance to run down. But I do remember buying and building the Lindberg SE-5 multiple times because it was one of the best SE-5 kits in the early 70s. I know Lindberg had a reputation for all kinds of issues, but the SE-5 was just one they got right. As my memory serves me, I remember my brother even commented, he goes, man, this model really goes together good. And he was like surprised because it was a Lindberg kit. I didn't know if you built that one or not.
No, I never. I never. Again, I didn't have a. I didn't. There was no online back then, of course,
Oh, yeah.
Max.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I didn't have any. I was captive of what was in inventory. I never saw a Lindberg biplane in the drugstore or in the 5 and 10. I did try my hand at a Lindberg Stuka, and was very, very upset with all the time I spent trying to make that damn motor. And I put it all together, and of course, hooked it up to the battery leads. It didn't do a damn thing. So
I tried to build something as a kid. None of them ever worked. So back around 07, 08, I'd only been married a couple of years, and my wife had me build the original TARDIS, my original shed at the old house. And I decided, you know what? I've never been able to build one those Lindbergh motors work. By God, and of course you can buy a working electric motor for 98 cents. But nope, I'm going to get one. So I bought the USS Manchester, the ship, because it was the cheapest thing I could find on eBay that had the build-it-yourself Lindbergh motor. Now I had proper tools and a proper workspace and everything. And I spent a couple of days putting that thing together. And it turned out most of the parts that made the armature were rusted, so I had to sand them all down. But I was super careful using all the tweezers and tools. Finally, I actually installed it in an airplane, hit the prop. It spun around about 4 or 5 times electrically. Hey, it's working. And then it stopped. And I hit it again. It went about 4 or 5 more times. I went, it worked. That's as close as I'm getting. Mission accomplished. Bucket list item checked off. Go to the next model. And I was like, there's no way on God's green earth an 8-year-old kid was going to build one. And I remember lamenting that on this channel. And then one of the glue troopers go, yeah, my dad was an electrician. He always got them to work. And I was like, your dad's an electrician. Yeah. That's cheating.
Was the SC5A a motorized kit or not, Max?
I think Lindbergh shoved the motor into most of their kits as a sales pitch. I didn't find one, but you could always install it. But I didn't find a motorized one that was on the box. That kit went back to the 50s, I think. But I remember just about everything they sold at some point, they tried to shove the motor in. And so I don't know. I'd be lying if I said I knew. I suspect they probably had one, but they may not have. You know what? Now I think about the motor, may not have fit inside that one. So maybe it didn't.
Right.
The Stearman had one, and that was the kit. I almost paid about $50 on eBay for a Stearman that had the motor and everything, and it was in better shape. But I think I got the ship for like $9, and I was like, yeah, you know what? I just want the motor. But and then once you get these things, like when I lighted my Enterprise Starship, had all the lights twinkling and everything, and then the wires start breaking and the batteries start, you wind up having to tear the model apart to do repairs. So I do have a couple of kits with proper lighting kits that I have the NX01 and a few others that I'll do in the future. But, of course, these are all hand-wired kits I did myself. My brother had the Enterprise that had the little wheat bulbs in it, and, you can never get that stuff. They were sales gimmicks. No one really, I think, expected them to work. But now, talking about sales gimmicks, we were just talking about earlier the Aeroskins from Renwall. I just through the gift of a glue trooper acquired a Bristol fighter, and it was. In fact, let me put this picture up here first. I'm sorry. Now, right now, you're probably. By the way, Mark, if I didn't tell you, we're running about a 15-second lag. Since we're on the phone, you hear my voice right away, but it takes 15-20 seconds for the images to get through the satellites that are linking up in outer space and down to your computer. So anyway, in the 60s, Renwall came with this interesting idea. Hey, what if we just build, put this piece of thin clothy paper in there, they can cut it out and just glue it to the airplane, they won't have to paint it. So I had one as a kid, made a total glue bomb out of it. Yes, I don't need paint to mess up a model. I can do it with glue and very little effort. And that's the beauty of big thumbs. So then, 9 years later, Renwall, the new Renwall, is kind of like, hey, I've got an idea. Let's take those Aeroskin models and we'll sell them without the Aeroskin, just as a basic kit. Now, there's a slight problem with that. You guys will shortly see some images of my Bristol F2 fighter. And it don't take no rocket scientist long to figure out that this kit, hold on, accidentally, what did I just do? Okay, right now this thing seems to, oh, hold on. Okay, where did that go? That's weird. I'm telling it to turn on. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay, sometimes we use a slideshow on this thing. You have a different set of buttons. Anyway, you will notice that the wings and the tail have what boil down to exposed ribs. And my belief is that you were supposed to lay the Aeroskin on top of this, put glue on that, press it down with your thumb so you would get impressions of the framing of the aircraft underneath the paper. They only did it on the wings and tail, not on the fuselage.
Except you got thumbprints on the paper.
Well, yeah, really. Yeah. And that explains what happened to my Aeroskin model. CSI would have had no trouble figuring out who built that airplane. But now I'm stuck with it. By the way, this model fits like a Johan model car. I mean, it really has a beautiful fit to it. But it does not, I've got to figure out what I'm going to do about all this. I mean, am I going to fill it with putty? Am I going to stretch paper over it? Am I going to, you just can't leave it like that. And I'm like, you guys actually marketed the kit this way? No wonder you went out of business.
To go off on a tangent based on something you just said.
Yeah.
We should get an interesting little Blue Trooper game to play on the channel. Should have everybody send in a fingerprint and then have a whole bunch of models with fingerprints on them and try to see who built that kit.
CSI Max's models.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, now that brings up, my wife did have a great idea for a Glue Trooper game, and we're going to do it at some point, probably in the not too distant future. The Glue Trooper scavenger hunt. Everybody is to go around to your local Dollar Tree or whatever El Cheapo store and take a picture of anything they have there that's dirt cheap that might be useful in model building, either on the model or to help build the model. Like going to the Dollar Tree and seeing where they've got the $1 nail files that we pay $6 for at the hobby shop, or $1 for a bag full of clamps they charge $8 for at the hobby shop. Anything you think would be useful to a modeler, and just send it in, and we'll just do this video on all the stuff that look like it might, and where you just tell me what it is and where you found it, and we can use that collectively as a we call it the Glue Trooper scavenger hunt. And I'll be going to the local dollar store to see what I can find. But anyway, Mark, with this Renwall kit, if this was dropped in your lap, what technique do you think you'd use to fix these wings and tail?
I would.
Now we know why Max got him on here.
Hello?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Never mind.
Ignore the laughing in the background.
By the way, Mark, if I didn't tell you, we proudly boast the lowest production values and worst behavior on the internet.
Well, he said he's been watching us, so he knows.
Yeah. You're getting info. I don't want to hear no complaints. But what do you think? I've thought about liquefying some putty, getting it real runny, and just kind of pouring it in and sanding it down. But or even pouring a little of that clear liquid into maybe but I just don't think, I don't know how that would, if that would really, pardon the pun, fly. Mark, still here?
I think we lost him.
Mark? Oh, we did. Let me see if I can get him back. I knew he had something he had to go do in a while. Yeah, the call dropped. Hang on, recents. He may have just hung up on us. I wouldn't blame him. Uh-oh.
leave a message after the tone.
Oh, he said he'll call me later. Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, how do I hang up on that without hanging up on you guys? I don't want to do what I did last time. You guys still there? Last time I tried to hang up on one part. Okay. Okay. He just sent me a text. He'll call back later. Something popped up. I know he's got some things going on down there. So anyway, Monaco. You know, I actually thought about Monaco, Chuck. Everybody say Monaco.
Also, she's your wife.
Huh? What?
Nothing. Move on.
Yeah, okay. Never said a thing, was never here. I suppose there's no reason Monaco would.
The problem with Monaco is you got to be careful when you heat shrinking it.
Yeah, and with styrene, I don't know how that would work. Getting a blowtorch. Actually, what I was thinking about was thinning down some white glue and just taking, regular tissue and just doing it like a balsa kit. Soak the tissue in white glue and just lay it down and then sand it off and paint it.
Well, actually, what balsa wood kits, they use dope.
I don't know how dope would react with styrene. There's a good chance it would eat right through it. But Ken, what you can do is, and I've done it before, is use a little glue. You can use CA glue or you can use white glue. Lay the tissue, just put it on the framing members, and then just put the tissue down, let it harden. Then do the old atomizer trick with a little water to get it to taut. Then you can thin some white glue and paint that over it like a dope. Okay, and it puts a pretty firm surface on it. Some guys do that instead of using dope. They use watered down white glue to cover their balsa kits. I've done that on a couple of them. And,
that would work.
It may not be the best thing if you're going to make a flying model. Dope would be better because dope seals up the pores, and so does the white glue. The
dope is lighter.
Yeah, exactly. And it gasses out. It's lighter than white glue. So the white glue's a little heavier. Will white glue be strong enough to hold tissue to the plastic? I've used white glue on canopies a lot, and you got to give it quite a while to harden. But it has worked. Use easy dope. It thins with water and doesn't affect styrene. Oh, that's a thought. Okay. So Fran, I'll just bring it over to your house and we can do it there. What shocked me was that Renwall would actually put this thing on the market like this. Now they do. You see the paper underneath it where it has all the control surfaces and everything printed. You can. I haven't actually read it, but you can cut them out and glue the instruction sheet because they give you that sheet. You can cut out the instruction sheet and just glue it to the frame, which I think is the plan. I haven't actually read all the text and the instructions, and
there's been a few good suggestions here coming.
I'm looking at some of them. Sanding down the ribs, that'd be a lot of sanding, but you could do it. It's going to be. But I don't think that would work too much with the wings.
Well, Bill said try putting some dope on a sprue and see what happens. Somebody else said that there was, I probably scrolled past, there was a specific kind of dope that's fine on styrene.
Yeah, that was Fran was saying that. Yeah, you really have to twist my arm to go down to Orlando to hang out with Fran and Trey and build models and stuff, and they always feed me too.
That's what the problem is.
And Ken can tell you firsthand, when you go, I have food, it's like you hear the brakes squealing outside. You go, hey, he got here quick.
Oh yeah, you want Max to show up? Just say you'll feed him.
Got Vern home before dark.
If you want to get to an airport real quick, just tell him you buy him dinner.
Yeah, we got Vern home at lightning warp speed.
Yes, we did. Get in the plane. I'll take care of this.
Yeah, promise a flight instructor a free meal, and
especially wearing a shirt that says a shirt that will say we'll fly for food.
I actually was wearing that shirt because somebody didn't tell me I was flying a company president, so I'm wearing a "We'll Fly for Food" T-shirt, my old floodwater Army BDU pants, green socks, and tennis shoes. Oh, I looked quite the ace pilot.
And then you tried to talk the guy into buying an airplane.
Yep.
With the accountant sitting there too.
Yeah, the accountant looking at me going, "Yeah, right, dude. If we do, you're not flying."
Yeah. And then you see what kind of reaction you were getting, and you backpedaled real quick, didn't you?
I'll tell you, got to read the room. Well, anyway, hopefully Mark will be able to join us later. But I was interested to hear how he does those incredible faces. Now, the Aeroskins, I mean, I give them credit for trying to do something different. But let's be honest, those were primarily just a sales gimmick. Well, kind of. I mean, they did sort of work. I didn't have a chance to get online. I've seen pictures of ones online that actually came out looking halfway decent. And for a kid who can't afford paints, at least it was a way to put some color on your airplane. But I'll have to read these instructions that are down there. If they say cut this out and glue it on, I'll do it just to see how it looks. I mean, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But the World War I aircraft, though, I mean, there's just a world of difference based on the manufacturer. Let me hold on. I'm gonna let's turn that down. Okay, I'm just rolling the intro here with the music turned off so we can go over some of the kits. That's their captured series. But this one with the Red Baron and Roy Brown dog, they call it Red Baron dogfight from NPC. It had the little infantry figures and the vacuform base. I got that for Christmas one Christmas, and I mean, it's probably 10 years old. Oh man, I flipped. I was so anxious to build that thing, and just good times. NPC made a series of these kits that came with the vacuform base they had the Pearl Harbor one, which I always thought was a waste because it came with like one airplane, a vacuform base. Like, you can't do Pearl Harbor on something that size, but this you could. And it was, if I was making the models, I would have gone ahead and molded the camel in brown and the triplane in red, just because, a lot of kids that are going to get this aren't going to have money for paint. But I tried to get it all painted up and looking good. And it was just, I mean, I'm 10 years old. I'm already interested in history. And it helped that we had met Dale Titler, who wrote the book The Day the Red Baron Died. He was the first one to push forward the theory that he was killed by ground gunners. And he'd actually been communicating with the Baron's mother. I don't remember this, what they call Panorama series. Came with 3 airplanes, but it might have been a little before my time. But, when you can't sell enough of them single, you put 3 of them in a box. And okay, Brian sent me some pictures here. Let me go check that real quick. Now, the wingnut wings, obviously, those are all 1/32 scale. I've only built the one that was a Felix, though. But my God, Mark's built several of them, and they are just insanely good. The detail on them is just unbelievable. Okay, let me check the email real quick. Crank that out. Hope I don't crash my system. Oh, here we go. Frank. There it is. Okay. Let's see if I can download that. Okay, download to your device. Okay, done. There it is. Okay, let me hold on, let me go back here. Okay, let's see, back. We'll get to that. Okay, there we go. Files. Let me, okay, I really need a flight engineer. Okay. By the way, very nice work on that. Okay, run out here and add a couple of pictures to our presentation. Try not to crash my computer. Here we go. That should have gone to the download folder. You large
Hey,
icons.
Max.
Here we go. Yeah.
Max, I'm gonna have to step out for the rest of the live stream.
Okay. Well,
But
thanks
y'all
for joining us, Ken.
Carry on without me.
All right. Take care.
Thanks.
Hi, Ken.
Bye, Steve.
Okay, Steve. It's you and me to carry the show. All right. Here we go. Glue Trooper just sent this one. Oh no, that's just you and me left, Steve. Hopefully, Mark can get back with us later. This is from Brian, and this is his fouls. Let's see, does it say it's an Edward kit, Edward 148 scale fouls, and beautiful work, and also very nice job on the figure too, especially at 148 scale. I didn't even know what a fouls was until I saw the Blue Max, and I was like, oh man, it's an albatross. I'm like, no, it's a fouls. And I'm like, no, it's an albatross. What's a fouls? And, you know, it's kind of sad in a way, unless you're an aircraft aficionado. You know, most people don't know one airplane from another in the First World War anymore. But at least we, you know, because of Roy Brown and because of Snoopy, we knew what a Sopwith Camel was, and because he was chasing the Red Baron, we knew what a triplane was. And it's like, oh my God, when Peanuts is the only thing out there educating people on World War One. Well, I guess it's better than nothing, eh?
They had a better audience.
Let me get that other picture up here too. Let's see. Okay, plus image. Browse. Okay, let's go. Here's a different angle. Actually, when it came out, the Fowls was actually quite a good airplane, as I understand it. But, you know, technology was moving so fast back then. But, by the way, Brian, did you use, like, the gas patch, or what was your technique for rigging this thing? Because I've noticed everybody's got a technique. Trey's here. Hey, Trey, we were talking about you earlier. And we had Mark from Montana with us, but he had to run. Hopefully he'll get back with us. Ken had to take off also. So it's me and Steve running the show. But Trey...
No problem can ever occur from that.
What's that?
So no problem can ever occur from that.
Let's see. Let's check that. I'm just curious because I know Trey did that Schukert, and which, by the way, was a really good airplane also, although they didn't make that many of them. Stainless steel wire and a lot of cursing. Okay, number point 10. So you're using the wiring. Okay, that's another. I have not used. Well, no. I did use wire on a Stearman, but the stuff I used was way too big. I thought it looked cool till I took a photo and saw it blown up and realized it was horribly off scale. I do have guitar string that Eduardo gave me in the shed, in the Tarbis, to use next time I build a biplane. So Blackadder. Oh, Blackadder, the private pilot. Let's see. Looking real quick here, make sure I don't. Now, to talk briefly about model building in the 40s, Frank sent me this. Let me see if I can get this to load without crashing the system. Let's see. Media source. Browse. There it is. Got it. Okay, I'm going to turn the volume down, though.
Hey, Max. Thought maybe you get a...
Okay, guys. This is Frank's dad in the 40s working on a model airplane. This is, I think he said 43. And Frank, why don't you put the details in the comment section there? But this is model building a la 1943. And There's his little sister. Ah, how adorable. And I imagine this is, I don't know if this was a flying model or a display model, but, you know, we've got it so easy today by comparison. I assume he's putting dope or something on it, but, yeah, sweetie, I'll just put some of this on your face. But that's just adorable. We were tough kids back then. You know, if you couldn't drink beer and smoke a cigarette by the time you were 12.
Does this video go long enough to see where they both pass out from the fumes?
Those are the grand old times. We shall not see their kind again, I don't think. Schoenfeld firecracker. Okay. Oh, man.
What was the worst thing that you ever did to yourself when you were building a kit by accident as a kid?
I think I shot some glue in my eye, and I mean the tester's red tube.
I did the same thing.
He was stationed at Fort Hill, Oklahoma, flight instructor and liaison.
And I'm looking at it, and I'm squeezing it. Why won't it come out? And then all of a sudden, blast straight in the eye. Oh.
Yeah, I absolutely did that. Okay, so that's 1943. He was a liaison pilot instructor in L4s and L5s. And that is his older sister, who is now 81. So, man, time is not kind to us. And my dad would have been about 12, 14 years old at this point, and he would have been building wooden airplanes also. I've got a few still pictures. He built a P-40 and some other stuff. And my dad actually turned into a very skilled wooden modeler when he was, but good Lord, the amount of time it took to build something like that. And you really got to appreciate the skill set. And I hope that was just wax or water on that brush. Well, she's 81, so she survived it. We were tough kids, you know. I don't call them the greatest generation for nothing. But,
I think Greenberry gets the award.
Well, for what?
Jammed a paintbrush into the back of my throat when I sat up from my beanbag.
It's a Keith Ryder racing plane. Okay, from the 30s. My dad was big into air racing. All right. I accidentally did plastic surgery on myself with an X-Acto knife. Who hasn't? I learned the most dangerous thing on the earth, and the most dangerous thing you can do with an X-Acto knife blade is try to get them out of the box.
Here we go. The day I found out you shouldn't try to catch the X-Acto knife off the bench.
Yeah. Well, it's an instinctive reaction. You can't stop yourself. Piercing the glue with the knife. Now, what would happen with us, and I imagine that this is, we are by no means the only ones here, but we we would use L-tester, and of course, when we'd find an old tube, we'd run out of glue, and it would be hardened up and everything, so we would squeeze it till we found a soft spot where we knew the glue hadn't hardened, and that's where you went in with the X-Acto knife and popped it to try to milk out that last bit of glue. And sometimes it would dribble out, and sometimes it would come out in thicks, and sometimes it would go, and crap went everywhere. And that was a good way to catch one in the nose or the ear or the eye. Because the concept of safety goggles, you know, was, or face mask, was as foreign as the moon. And then it just, God, it's how we survived our childhood. I don't know. But, Trey had sent me some gas patch turnbuckles, and I have learned that if you're going to rig, and people have told me that the 1/72nd scale or 1/48 scale ones actually look more to scale on a 1/32nd scale airplane, and they probably do, but, you know, they're wonderful if you can get both ends tied off and everything. Now, the book on the Felix, though, the guy who built that actually inserted all of the turnbuckles, hardened them in place, and once the model was basically done, then he went through and laced them. But let me see if I can find that picture real quick. It seems like most modelers like to, I think it was what was it? Find that one here. Most modelers like to pre-rig them, and all they have to do is glue them into the airplane, the gas patches, drill out and glue them in. The problem you run into there, of course, is that then you have tension on the line. Something's got to hold tension on it while the glue hardens. And I know there are accelerators. I think I've seen Trey use accelerators so that he can hold it in place, hit it with the accelerator, in a couple of seconds hardened. That can get a little tricky. But I'm trying to find, I was just looking at it a minute ago. I thought I took a mental note of where I put it, but me making a mental note is like, trying to mark a landmine with toilet paper on a windy day. Let's see it. When was the last time you heard somebody make a comparison like that? Okay, well.
Let's see, the crowd says he got glue stains on his dad's Playboy. Very poor excuse blaming it on.
Okay, we're not going to touch that one, literally. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Okay, this is... okay, this is 0317. Okay, picture plus image. Okay, browse. 2025. 03.
Seems like we have a variety of people who glued their fingers together with crazy glue.
Oh, who hasn't? You haven't done that, you're not trying hard. Okay, this is the way I've noticed that most people tend to do it. They rig one end, and they put it on the gas patch, glue it in place. Then they'll glue the other gas patch, so the model winds up looking like this. And then once they've got the other wing secured on, then they'll put into the gas patch and then have to tie down one end. And then it's just a matter of tying it off. Remember, you don't need a lot of tension. You just want the line to be taut. So you don't have to, some people pull way too hard on it and they're actually exerting pressure on the parts. And that's just enough that it hangs straight. You don't want any sag. When I did the Felix stow, I didn't have easy line I don't think maybe I did. I didn't do the whole thing in it. And sometimes after the model was done, everything was taut and looked good. I come back to the next day and I had line sag. And that was heartbreaking. Let me see. Yeah, no.
Listen, Jim M says, his dog super glued her mouth together, chewing the super glue too.
So it's not super dog, it's super glue dog. Okay, that I shouldn't laugh at that, but I'm going to.
Gets the award.
Yeah, but you can actually on the Felix though, you can actually start to see, because that was not easy line, and you could start to see after a while some of the lines as the model, I guess, would just settle, and some of the lines would start to get slack. And I'd gone through all this trouble to get all the color right and everything, and then it just, I was like, that was just heart wrenching.
Celebrating Vintage Model Kid says, I have a trained spider that does my plane rigging.
Hey, Eric, can I borrow him? That would, if you could figure out a way, spider web would be perfect, especially for 1/72 scale. Okay, you put a little spider food on each point of the airplane you want it to go to.
Call Peter Parker, tell her to come over.
Hey, Pete, you're not building another model, are you? But
Frank wants to know, is the Felix being rebuilt?
Fran's working on that very slowly. I don't think he has all the parts. He's actually fabricated a few struts and stuff, and he's done. Fortunately, unlike me, Fran is both meticulous and talented. So I was like, when I saw that thing on the floor, that was about as close to crying I've come in a long time. And But and part of me, deep inside the recess of my mind, was this twisted little part of the human id that was like, Max, get another one, do it again.
Mess with this again for another couple of months.
Yeah. The next time I build it, because I've got some World War One kits. I mean, actually, I got a stack of them. I have promised myself after doing the biplanes for the world cruisers that I was never rigging another 1/72nd scale model. But and I probably won't. But I do have some 1/48 scale stuff, and that I will probably rig. But what I have promised myself that in the future, when it comes to rigging, I am not going to sit down and just try to rig the whole airplane in 2 days. It's do a little bit, put it away, go to another project. Come back when you feel like it. Don't rush it. One of the problems with rigging, as my dentist says, they taught him in dental school, access is success. And access is the big issue. You know, Bruce, Mystic Modeler ships, his favorite part of building those big sailing ships is rigging them. But generally speaking, you have somewhat better access on those things. You get into these, you know, the airplanes, you get in the cabane struts and between the landing gears, and it gets really difficult really fast. So what I have learned is that there's a repetitive nature to it. You really need to, when you're like, okay, that's it for the day, set it down and walk away. Don't try to do it all at one sitting. I mean, it's one thing, it was just a few pieces, like the 19th, like the Weedle Williams racer. It only has about 7 or 8 pieces, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. It's only about 14 pieces of rigging on it. So not such a big deal. And the next one, Weedle Williams, I think I'm going to use the wire. Those ones that were on display at the Crawford Museum, which I'm certain they were all Williams Brothers kits, but they were meticulously made. I mean, they're in a museum. They're literal museum pieces. And but most of the rigging on those was wire. It wasn't easy line or anything. And I was like, yeah, when you're dealing with an airplane like that, that makes a lot of sense. And there are some models do have actual photo etch rigging sets where everything's pre-cut for you. The problem there is you better build the model perfectly, because if the wings are slightly out of spec, then one's going to be too long and one's going to be too short. And somebody, is Fran the Kermit Weeks of the model airplane world? maybe. The World Wrestling Federation, they're the Professional Boxing Federation. They're the experts on rigging. Now, Steve, you're a New Yorker. You want to chime in on that one?
I don't want to discuss it because you might get knocked off the air.
There we go again, yeah. Okay, Fran, the Felixstowe restoration is underway. It's slow. Fuselage and wings are repaired and repainted. Had to make new struts. Delaying to the rigging. I already have high blood pressure. Yeah. Give yourself a year. Remember that the Felixstowe that was done for the book on building the Felixstowe, and I don't know how I let that book get away from me. That guy spent 2 years building that model. And I'm not saying it was the only thing he built in those 2 years, but you look at the work that he did, and of course, as you would expect from the photos of the model they put in the book, it was absolutely fantastic. You know, the thing is, we always think that when you see a photograph of a model on a box top, and you figure it was made by some professional model builder, if there is such a thing. But in reality, you know, Andy Anchis did a couple of them. He said, no, they just got people around the factory who are model builders. They'd give them 3 of the kits, you know, so they could have do-overs or whatever, and go make it. And then they would only photograph it from the best angle. They go, sometimes those model builds weren't really that great. And I've actually seen a couple of them. I looked at the box, I went, that model build ain't really that great.
When I worked for Matchbox and we bought AMT, I used to build all the models that we had in the showroom, and then they would take pictures of them and put them in the catalog.
Yep.
So like you said, they would just get people who were builders and say, here, you want to build this?
And Trey says it took him a year to build the Gotha. And I thought I do want a Wingnut Wings Gotha, and I don't want a Wingnut Wings Gotha. It's like in that movie, I think it's Failure to Launch. where Matthew McConaughey is telling the kid who's talking about, I want a boat. He goes, you're not in love with owning a boat. You're in love with the idea of owning a boat. You know, you want that Gotha because it's such a beautiful airplane. Then you get the kit and realize how much work goes into it, and then you're not so sure. And then, provided it's done and you've done a decent job on it, okay, where do I have 4 cubic feet of display space?
Send that clip to Kent.
I think he might have been the one that told me about it.
When
Nathan
you're
said,
building a model of that complexity, and that's really what it is. I mean, there are times you just have to put it down and walk away from it and not touch it for weeks at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only way that you don't ruin it. Because you try to rush it, then you want to get it off the bench. I want to get it out of here.
Yep.
No, that's the wrong way to do it.
That's the most
You
dangerous
gotta
point
get
in any build is when you get that I want it done phase going. Nathan was saying, it took him 5 years to build his Newport 28 cutaway model. If you guys, I showed some pictures of it a couple of years ago. He did a cutaway Newport 28, fantastic, and clearly a testament to his patience and ability to focus. Kraut said Monogram used to use Shep Payne's actual builds. They were Holy Grail type for their day. They were. But Shep Payne is also the one, if you read his books, he's the one, like, if you can't see it, don't waste time building it. He didn't put interiors on anything that wasn't going to be seen. And, which, weirdly enough, that was my philosophy, but then I started doing it. And I've got so much crap in that Tamiya Mustang that I could have just blown off because you were never going to see it. But I just couldn't do it. You know, it's a Tamiya and it just fits so good.
Hey, when I did that garage kit for that guy of Supercar from the Jerry Anderson show, it took me 2 years to do that thing because there was no instructions. It was a lot of different mixed materials, and you had to figure it out. And then it was just so.
But that's one of the problems with buying those big specialty kits that are made in someone's garage is, you know, they may make a beautiful kit, but it's like a programmer who writes beautiful code but never takes any notes, so there's no documentation.
Yeah.
You know.
And the problem is if you screw it up, there's no parts.
Yeah.
You can't get a spare part.
Yeah,
so
that's absolutely
right. You better
right.
make sure that you take your time.
Well, John Ashley Smith makes a great point. You know, when he's working on ship models, it's tedious and it gets to him quickly, so he's got to only do little stints. And that's exactly the way to do it. That's one of the reasons I like, some of you guys have called them palate cleansers. You know, I'll build something like that Mustang that is, I mean, it's a great kit, but it's just so many parts. There's so much to it that I want to build a couple of these, like, quote unquote, quick and easies or quick and dirties, just something fun I could slap together. And I thought the Renwall was going to be one until I realized I was going to have to skin the bloody thing. But
how many of you guys have built kits that had intricate interior parts, and you're doing it and you're saying to yourself, nobody's ever going to see this. I could skip that part. I
have only become a victim of that recently, but I have a ton of engines and cockpit details and wheel well, because I was not, you know, I'm making it wheels up or whatever. And you know, if and we'll probably at some point do a build where I want you to use nothing but the crap, just glue together the crap that's in your spares box. And what I'm going to have is going to look like a bunch of orphan landing gears with drop tanks. But the part that drives me up the wall, and I shouldn't say this because it really does make a model pop. I've got 4 Sky Raiders I need to build, and I built that big one recently. And I know that a Sky Raider, and I've got the one, the toilet bomber, and you've got to put the Ordnance on a Sky Raider because that's what they were famous for. But I look at all the rockets and bombs they can carry, I'm like, oh my God, you know. I got to make 12 identical rockets. I've got to, you know, and it's like, so, flying centipede. And, so what I probably will do when it comes time to build the Sky Raiders, I'm seriously considering doing production line style. You know, have all 3 kits, build all 3 engines, do all the Ordnance at one time. I've learned I've got to do the Ordnance ahead of time, all right? and sort of get that done. Because if I build the model and it looks good, and then I turn around and look at this box with all this ordnance I have to sand, fit, build, detail, and I'm kind of like, it looks good clean. And although I got to give Tammy a credit, when I did the Colonel's F4, those being 1/32 scale, those missiles had multiple parts and a ton of details on each one. But I didn't mind so much on them because you could virtually read the text because they looked so good. I see guys that do that same amount of detail on a 1/48 scale, which I have nothing but respect for, but I scratch my head. I'm like, one thing, if you can pull it off though, is a lot of bombs have a ring around them. And if it's olive drab with that yellow ring, a lot of the kits will give you a decal for it. Getting all those decals on all those bombs to look uniform is nightmarish. What I will probably try to do is paint the bomb yellow and see if I can get uniform thin tape around it, and then paint the bombs green and peel the tape off, because those decals never quite look right. I'm not sure how these guys are painting that stuff. If they're doing the negative, paint it yellow, putting tape around it, then painting it green. I don't see how they can get that yellow to pop like that and have those clean demarcation lines at that scale. And
You put it in a drill.
Kudakula, somebody already sent me the 3D toilet for the toilet bomber. I appreciate that. And I have it in the box with the kit. And when you do one like the toilet bomber, then you got to review the footage, make sure you got because you got to have the right ordnance. You got to carry what he was carrying. And mask with O-rings. Well, that's a cool thought. Huh.
Put it in a drill.
What?
Put it in a drill, low speed, it turns it, you just hold the paintbrush.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I have a Dremel, but the thing only turns high speed. Actually, I was thinking about doing it by hand, just by, putting on the Lazy Susan and do it that way.
Yeah.
I sometimes paint circular parts. That's how I did the nose on the spinner, on the red on the spinner on that Red Star model I just did. I put on, just went around. Actually, I was using a fat red marker, and I just went around, and it wasn't perfect, but it was okay. And the nice thing about Russian hardware, if it's not perfect, it actually adds authenticity. Ooh, orthodontic rubber bands. My God, I had braces. I hadn't thought about that. That's an awesome idea.
You still got them? The rubber bands, I mean.
I was 14, and I'm pretty sure they're gone. But I'm sure I guess I could go to the local dentist and just ask them, or they probably have them at the drugstore. See, that's the kind of thing for the scavenger hunt. That's exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about. We got to think outside the box. Think, what can I use this for? And if the ring could see, well, Bill, I tell you what you do. What I would do is paint the bomb yellow, or at least the nose section yellow. Once I got the color I wanted, put the ring on it, and I'd probably dip it in and give it a good shake, and dip it in floor wax. Or you could spray it with clear lacquer. That should seal it up enough that you won't get paint intrusion. And if you get a little paint intrusion, it's not really a big deal, because there's just, those bombs were painted green and the yellow was painted on top of them. So, you could touch it up or just write it off as a paint chip. It would, that's interesting. Yeah, that could work. Nice thing about micro rubber bands is they've got some tactile to them. You put them someplace that they hopefully won't go flying off. Think about it would make ponytails. Well, I think those would be a little big, but you never know, depending on what you're building. Spam, bacon, and spam.
There you go.
You just described the average meal in the Army. But, by the way, tangent time. I was watching a documentary on Loach helicopters today, and I don't know if these numbers are correct, but I knew flying a Loach was a dangerous job, But they said the Army had like 1,300 OH-6 Cayuse helicopters and over 900 of them were shot down or crashed. I was like, dude, that's 2/3 of the fleet. Here's a hint. Armor plate. A full photo etch cockpit in a 1/72nd scale Sunderland that you'll never see. Okay, confession time. But in my defense, I thought you would be able to see it. I built an Aurora C-119 a while back. In fact, it's the kit that I built that had the horrible paint reaction. I think I tried to put enamel over lacquer, and it just bubbled up. Fortunately, it didn't damage the styrene, but I had never seen paint. I mean, it blistered like I could just brush it off. It was a wow. That didn't work. Anyway, I fully detailed the cockpit and even put a navigator up under the Astrodome, you know, like for shooting cell navigation. And I had the cockpit all detailed out. And I was like, this is going to look great because I thought you'd be able to see in there. But by the time I got done with the model, you know, I had waxed, I had put floor wax on all the clear parts and everything. But by the time I got all the frames painted and everything, the windows, even on a C-119, were just so small, you just couldn't see inside. And I was like, well, that was a wasted bloody effort. But in fairness, I did all that detail because I thought you'd be able to see it. A Heinkel 111, a B-29, you know, with those big glasses, a helicopter. Yeah, you definitely want to properly detail out the cockpit because it's easily visible. Maybe a bubble top fighter, at least the instrument panel. But, or if you're going to, obviously a World War I airplane because it's an open cockpit. But, yeah, a lot of that stuff's just a wasted effort. And the nice thing is the parts you don't put in there, you can do other stuff with. I swear, if I get another Felix though, I've said this before, that whole interior, I am building that as a separate display on the side so you can see all the work. Then I'll just make the airplane with all the doors shut, but I'll still detail the cockpit. Or if I'm going to put on a parking ramp, I might put a tarp over the cockpit because I want you to be able to see all that work. And but I got to give Wingnut Wings credit. The airplane went together very well. I didn't have any fit issues. The only thing that you might call a fit issue was when I was rigging it. You've got I think I had everything in place. I mean, they're pretty good about marking where everything goes and having it set up right. But when I rigged it the way they said to rig it, it was a Y cable over behind each engine, and it's supposed to go behind the engine intersect, and they go to one cable into the wing, and both of them laid over the back of the engine, which they weren't supposed to do. And I looked, everything looked like it was in the right place, but oh well. That was the only thing that quote unquote didn't fit. But in the nice thing about the little Aurora kits and this stuff is that, you know, you may put a little rigging on them just to give it the look, but because they're fairly basic kits, you don't feel compelled to try and put every single piece of rigging on. You know, you put some X rigging in each bay and maybe between the fore and aft strut on the end. Looks fine. You know, and it's all what you want. If you just want something that's going to look good on the shelf, that's all you need to do. I've got an Aurora biplane. It's the DH-10, which is actually a post-war airplane, and had some trouble fitting the clear part into the front without damaging it, which was a disappointment. But, you know, I'm thinking about, I might rig it a little bit, but I don't think I'm going to put all the rigging on it. Just, you know, and it's 1/48 scale, so it's still pretty good sized. I also have that, there's another one, I forgot what it is off the top of my head, but I try to pre-paint biplanes as much as I can because, man, once you get them together, painting them without getting it where it doesn't belong, because, you know, you've got two wings, you got to get up in between them. So I try to do the underside and the over to the top of the wing and the fuselage, get all that pre-painted so that all you got to do is touch it up if you can. And but I don't know what kind of crack addict they had in the German Imperial Air Service, but that freaking lozenge pattern, it's okay if you get a decal, but if you got to hand paint that, and I hand painted the lozenge pattern on the bottom of my little 1/72nd scale Fokker D7, those wings are like that big, and it took me a full night to get them done because there's, you know, so many colors and there's so many. and you're sitting there, trying to. So no more lozenge patterns unless it's a decal. That's one of the things I like. Mark's working on one of those. He's working on the Red Baron's early albatross. He's got some videos out there, and they put the nice wood panel decal for the whole fuselage. I'm like, there you go. That's a ticket.
So we're getting a lot of comments about why shouldn't there be a model kit museum at the Smithsonian wing?
Well, they do have, at the Uvar-Hazy facility, they do have a case with a bunch of handmade models and a few kit models. And they have a thing representing model building, and they do have a lot of models on display. But there's not a dedicated, they did, when I first started going there, they did have a glass case that was dedicated towards scale model building. And they had a handmade, scratch-built, I'd say about 124 scale F-105 Thunder Chief. And they had some pictures of the guy with the block styrene and the diagrams, just shaving it all down. Masterful job. But I went back there some years later, and because they rotate the exhibits, and it was gone. And I was very disappointed by that.
They have the Model Car Kit Museum, which is being moved to, I think, Oklahoma right now. It's in the process of being moved, which was in Salt Lake City. But that's just automotive kits.
Dear God, Trace hand painting the lozenge pattern on a freaking Gotha. Dear God. Well, I'll bring the whiskey, man. Yeah, dribs and drabs, bits and pieces. That is definitely not a job to do all in one night. And the one nice thing about the 1/72 scale was I didn't have to make them perfect lozenges, just kind of blot it on there because it's so small. Gotta admit though, when I was done, it really did look good. I don't think I got all the colors right, but it's so dizzying to look at, you can't really tell. I learned if you scan your eyes left and right real fast across the lozenge pattern, it's a good way to test for epilepsy. Well, let's see. And a Hanover. My God, all these guys are I thought I was the only one lunatic enough to do that. Can you imagine being some German sergeant having to hand paint the real airplane? Well, actually, he would have the privates doing it. I wonder if they used a stencil or if they had pre-printed linens, or if they actually had to hand dope it. Because I know the people who built the Fokker D7 kit for the full-sized replica airplane, I believe they gave you we'll call it the skin for the airplane. I think it came pre-colored, so you didn't have to paint it. Let's see. Okay, the lozenge was printed fabric. Okay, well that makes life a lot simpler. And you can buy lozenge decals. I mean, just blocks of the stuff, which is in what any sane person would probably do, but we're model builders. When did sanity enter the equation? Bill, yeah.
A lot of talk about having a model museum.
Oh, well, it would be wonderful. He could. I talked about doing it, but I know Andy's hobby headquarters, he actually emailed him for some reason asking about that, and he had actually considered it, and the cost of the cabinetry alone was prohibitive. And everybody said it was pre-printed.
Automotive Model Car Kit Museum from Salt Lake to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
To the Museum of American Speed, and they're going to do a real nice job. It's going to be a pretty big section of the museum.
I'll tell you a good place for the if they did a kit model museum, especially for aircraft, a good place for it would either be Oshkosh or Lakeland, because the EAA has enormous operations at both of them, and Lakeland's in Florida, which is a tourist area, but Oshkosh is the mothership of the EAA. That those would both be good ones to do it. But I agree, the Air and Space should have one. And
the Museum of Flight out at Boeing Field should have one.
Yes. And you know what? I'll tell you exactly where you put in your museum, I'll tell you exactly where you put the big section dedicated to the history of kit models. You put it by the gift shop. Have you ever noticed that most museums are set up so that you cannot leave without going to the gift shop?
Where do you think Disney got the idea?
Used to be able to buy the covering, but oh, great. Well, might have to start snooping around eBay, see if I can find some lozenge pattern decals. Just put them away in case. Of course, you know what, guys? I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner. You do realize that if you've got a laser printer, you can download the pattern and just print it on white paper, and then on decal paper. I mean, and then just
So
that could be an interesting little project.
here's something interesting. Andy's Hobby Headquarters opened his new facility today, which is quite impressive. Now, here's a guy who's gone the extra mile. He's opened up a huge facility. He's directly importing, TACOM kits as well as other kits. And he's really stepped up where hobby stores are dropping like flies. And he's stepping up to, take control and make himself a factor in the industry.
Mm-hmm. Well, I got to give Andy credit. Okay. I'm about to say something that I'm not really sure I should say. It's YouTube safe. I just don't want to make any enemies in the industry or make any accusations or aspersions. But maybe Andy should take over, buy out Atlantis. Well, anyway. I mean, he's a good businessman, or he wouldn't be as survived as far as he has. He already has connections to get stuff made. I mean, and imagine what he could do with a 350 mold bank. 300, just
750.
Huh? Oh, 700.
750.
Okay. And I'm not. That's not meant as an aspersion against Rick or Pete. It's just Andy seems to have the resources. Anyway, I'm talking out my backside here, which is one of my many superpowers. Well, by that token, I'm surprised round 2 hasn't gobbled them up. But anyway, but you know what? I see some of the models. Aren't they putting out? Somebody's putting out the Redstone or the Explorer one, the Juno with the gantry. Isn't that coming out again? Right?
Yeah, Revell repopped it.
I have got to get one of those. I've never had that kit, and I've always wanted it. I love rockets that come with gantries. I think it just really makes them pop. That's why that Vanguard is one of my favorites, because it has the gantry with it.
The worst box art ever on the re-release. It looks like a cartoon drawing from Paw Patrol.
Hold on, now I got to go look at it.
I mean, when you consider it had that great artwork that the original and the repops always had, with the gantry and the rocket being all lit up in that mountain, launch pad, which
from their secret base in the mountains, because Florida doesn't have mountains, guys. Okay, let's see. Revell. This would be space. Let me find scrolling and scrolling and scrolling along Frosty Moor. Oh my God, my brother sent me the. Here it is. Oh my God, that is horrible.
It's the worst box art I've ever seen. That would make me not want to buy the kit.
Okay, guys, you're gonna not love this. Really, what were they smoking? File, save as, JPEG. Let's call it just, okay, save, close that, open that, plus, image, D191, mean, this is just, that ain't good. Yeah, that is not a good look.
It's really poor.
I mean, I like the angle. That's not the problem. It's the execution. It just.
It looks like a cartoon.
Yeah, I guess that's as good a way as any to put it. Yeah. I mean, I'll buy it, but that just doesn't work for me. Jupiter C with gantry, that's it. The rocket, don't think that paint scheme's correct. I don't remember the can. I remember having one black stripe on it so that you could monitor as it went around for telemetry. And it was a black and white photo. Maybe the marking was red. I'll go find some color photos. And I thought it said UE on the side of. Hold on, this is driving me nuts. Now I got to go look this up. Yeah, dadgummit. I know you guys just love watching me do research in real time.
Yeah, at least it's not AI. It would have been better if it was AI. Roy wants to know, can you put the original box next to it?
Sure. Let me give me a minute here. Okay. Copy image. Super quick. Edit. Paste. I'm gonna put. Put the actual rocket next to it, and then I'm going to go to a picture of the original box art, which is pretty awesome, actually. Let's see here. And that image. Okay, here's the actual rocket next to it. Now let me go get the original box art. I wonder if that's a repop of the. Oh yeah, this is awesome. That's 2000. Here we go, 1958. Ah, you know what? I think what he did was he copied the original box art because he's got the same incorrect markings on it. So hold on, it's still an awesome looking paint job though. Edit, paste. Okay, that's an image. And there's the original box art, which has that awesome looking background, which I know there's no mountains in Florida. It's not what it looked like, but it still looked awesome. Let's see. Yeah, it's just a repop the same thing. So yeah, it doesn't. The new, of course, the initial repop was just the model being displayed, but oddly enough, none of them have the correct markings. But the Hawk kit, that's weird. The Hawk kit isn't correct either, and it's just about as bad. But
Celebrating Vintage Model Kit says the reason they launched it in the mountains is because they were hiding it from Godzilla.
That is exactly where I knew somebody was going to go with that. I was actually going to make that exact comment a minute ago. I got sidetracked.
Now, there is no comparison between these two boxes. None.
Now, this next one is for Glencoe, and it's a Jack Linwood, and I love it. I think it's great. Good God, what is up with this computer? It keeps bringing these pictures in so small. That can't be right. Hold on. Well, one of the Hawks has the correct paint scheme on it, and
by the way, whoever did the build of the Jupiter C in the last viewer's build did an unbelievable job.
That was nice, wasn't it?
That was phenomenal.
Now here, okay, file, save as. Now here's Linwood's artwork, which I think it's the kind of thing that makes you want to buy the model, at least in my opinion. And way better than the one on the left. Probably, I mean, I like just the angle and everything, and the paint scheme is correct on this one also. By the way, if you ever build this kit and you want to be accurate, you got to be careful with your details, because each area between the fins is a different combination of black and white, or just white, and it was done that way because they knew how each fin was painted by number, and that was used for telemetry. You know, they filmed there that way. If the rocket began to roll or something, they could use that to determine roll rate and things like that. Another good Hawk had their early one was I think better. Their second one was kind of lame, like the one we were just talking about, but this was their early one. I don't know why they changed it. Okay. Okay, that was your musical section of the show. That's actually not bad. The Hawk had a pretty decent box art with it just starting to edge out of the atmosphere. And shows you the model very clearly, what you're going to be building. Although I like Linwood's a little bit better, but I'm kind of prejudiced because I like pretty much all of Jack Linwood's artwork. I just think he really understood what made people reach out and grab people. But I don't. Who
did the original box art?
Who did the original?
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's see. Do I see a name on it? I don't see a signature. I can run out to Box Art Den real quick and see if they show it. Oh, yeah, real-time research, man. This is positively scintillating. Okay. And click here to enter the gallery. And that was a Hawk kit. Let's see. Box Art Collection. That's Hawk. Faller, Frog, Glencoe, Hass. Oh, there it is. Hawk. Learn the alphabet, Max. Aerospace. Rockets and missiles. Here it is.
Okay, the box art for the 58 Revell Jupiter C model kit was done by Ken Miller.
It's odd. It doesn't have an artist's name here anywhere. Hawk, Jupiter C. Bummer.
Ken Miller was an artist and designer for Revell during the 50s and 60s and was known for his work on numerous Revell kits, including the Jupiter C.
Okay. Well, let me do this. Who did the artwork for the Hawk Jupiter C kit? And no hits. Might have been John Andrews. That says dating back to '67, though. The kit dating back to I think the kit's actually older than that. Let's see. Yeah, the kit goes back to '58. '67 would be the new box art. That's the one we don't like. Let's see. Let's put 1958 in there and see if anything comes up. 1958. Nope. Nothing. Old model kits has one of them here. Oh, wait a second. 58 rare issue. 300 features on the ground crew. Doesn't say who did that one. That's the 58. But there's one for $119, an original, available on old model kits. Oh, well. Let's see. That would take forever to do it that way, and we got a live stream to do. So anyway, cool stuff though. I get sidetracked so easily running down these rabbit holes, but I likes rabbit. Okay. Good Lord. Let me start taking some of these things down here, and we're back. So we put so much, because it was important to us, we put so much emphasis on this stuff, but the artist who did it, for him it was just a day gig. It was like, it was just another illustration that took him an afternoon or a day or two to knock out. Linwood could knock these things out in 24 hours. Some of them took a week, but
Keeler talked about that.
Uh-huh.
He said they would have Linwood come in, they'd tell them what kit they were going to do, and they'd show them, their preliminary, materials, and he'd say, okay, he'd go home, and he'd come back the next day with something done, and they'd say, okay, add this, change this, but okay. He'd go back and do it. He says it would be done 2 or 3 days.
Yeah. I remember Linwood, he did the poster for the movie Airport 77, the one where they have the mid-air collision, the one where it goes underwater. Okay? He did the artwork for that, and he showed them, and he gave them what they asked for, but they said, oh, we want this, this, and this. And he took it home and started to do changes, and then he realized, you know what, he just threw it away and started over. Went back the very next day with a poster exactly the way they wanted it. They were thrilled, but they're like, wow, how'd you make the changes? He goes, I just started over. He just stayed up all night doing it. And Jack was very disciplined. Mike was telling me that he had his routine. He would get up, go for a jog in the morning, have his breakfast, and then go sit down and just start working. And he was lost to the world until the end of the workday. And very disciplined, very dedicated, and he worked very fast. And what always surprised me is that you see these people. What?
Didn't say anything.
Oh, heard something crackling in over the radio. And these guys really weren't that expensive. I mean, they were getting like $400 for these things, and I realized in the '60s $400 was probably like $4,000 a day. But and Mike said, they'd get together for their annual convention. And how are these subs? Flight carrier 747. It's pretty darn slow. Let's That's right. Jupiter C was a test vehicle, and the Juno 1 was the. And do you know why it had the name Juno 1 when it was essentially the same vehicle with a different fuel valve? It was because they didn't want military names for science rockets, which is why the Thor became the Delta. And, and I kind of get it from a PR standpoint. You call it the Jupiter, it's a nuclear missile. You call it the Juno, it's a research rocket. So, what do they call the research version of the Sidewinder where it's researching how fast it can shoot down a MiG? The Diamondback. But, oh, by the way, did you see the new joke that's floating around online? The guy did a really good deep fake. Did a message from the Florida Department of Natural Resources that tourists should wear small bells and carry pepper spray in case of alligators. And he goes, and you have to be able to tell the scat between a baby alligator and an adult alligator, because scat from a baby alligator smells like fish, and scat from an adult alligator smells like pepper spray, and occasionally bells ring at times. But being a native Floridian, our attitude on alligators is just whack them on the nose, they'll leave. Crocodiles are another story. You need to stay away from those things.
Anybody ever make a model of a crocodile or an alligator?
What's that?
Anybody ever make a model of an alligator or a crocodile?
You got the one that Steve Austin was fighting. Wait a minute, no, that was a gorilla.
Yeah, I guess.
Seems like there was some model of the figure fighting an alligator. Drawing a blank on it, but it seems to be scratching the inside of my brain somewhere. That's a small area to scratch. I'll be honest with you, when it comes to getting that stuff, if you can find it online, just hit Control Alt copy and do a screen grab, manipulate that. It's still celebrating aviation with Mike Machat, but it's just an email service type thing now. I don't think he's making videos anymore because basically the YouTube rules changed and he wasn't making anything at it. And I can tell you right now, in fact, I'll just take a quick look right here. Probably the kind of thing you're not supposed to mention, but your YouTube channel. Oh my God, dude, my revenue went down.
How did it go down?
I guess viewership dropped off. I was looking at $40.22. I'm now looking at $39.25. I didn't even know that was a thing.
So you're penalized if people stop watching your channel.
I guess. I'm going to do this monetization thing for a while and see how if it goes, but if it turns out that it's going to be $100 every 3 months or something,
yeah,
what's the point?
It's like you're paying them.
Turn on the videos and just let them run. Stuntman Ross Kamanga did the 007 Crocodile Tuesday. Oh, yeah, when he ran across the backs of them. Or as we used to call it when I was a kid, running to school. Oh, thank you, Ricky. By the way, these super chats, I have no idea where that money goes because I don't know if it pops up in the regular thingy or what, because the numbers don't seem to add up. But this is all still a mystery. Let's see. Let me check something real quick here. Boom, 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 boom.
I don't know if you guys all know about Steve Maniente, who is usually always on Barrett Jackson, but he has a YouTube channel where he does junkyard crawls, and he makes some really awesome altered wheelbase dragster kits.
Uh-huh.
Well, Steve got meningitis, and he was in the hospital for a long time. It took him a long time to recover. And one of the guys from the channel, Rick DeBull, he told everybody on TV, he said, just put his channel on YouTube and just let it run. So this way he can get some income, so when he gets out, he's not broke. And that's what people did.
Oh, God bless them. Okay, here's the thing. It says here that the money is an estimated. Your final amount may change at the end of the month. That explains why so many YouTubers pack stuff at the end of the month. They're trying to get their numbers up, because apparently it does its calculation based on the end of the month, something like that. So nobody really knows how it works. So I think they keep it deliberately mysterious. And well,
that's what most criminals do.
Steve Magg's builds are tight. Yeah, lake lizards. YouTube takes 30% of super chat donations. Wow. Okay. Well, that explains that.
Worse than eBay.
Oh my God! As a T-shirt, YouTube worse than eBay. So, anywho, let's see. We got about 23 minutes left here. Anybody got any particular subjects they wanted to cover or talk about or inquire on? And
yeah, unfortunately, today I went to my local hobby shop, which is 30 miles away, and these guys have been in the business forever.
Uh-huh.
And they're really nice guys, and they have a small store. They downsized because of overhead. And today they told me that they're looking for somebody to buy out the inventory so they can just close the door and walk away because they can't make a living.
Yeah, well, I remember.
And that's a sorry state of the industry.
Well,
and
the internet.
That's a common problem.
Yeah, the internet is. My wife ordered something from Walmart, and it showed up the next day. In fact, it was we got a couple of these staplers, and we ran around looking for the one little dinky house staplers. That's it. I'm getting some real ones. We won't keep losing. And she got online, and these things were dropped within 24 hours. And yeah, well, but you know, guys, let's be honest. The world has always been changing. There used to be dedicated hobby shops because those were the, and just like models used to be in grocery stores and drug stores and convenience stores because everybody built models. So, and then as less and less people built them, it became more of a centralized thing. And eventually it's just changing in consumer habits, just like, the computer store, the iPad store took over from the hobby shop, and it's just changing and everything. It's like I said before, if you'd gone to my high school graduating class and said, who wants to be a pilot or even a mechanic, you'd had a whole student body lined up around the building. We go to universities now and, 12 kids show up. They even have a passing interest in it. They just want to see what it's all about. And you get to be a pilot. And they're like, okay, what's so great about that? And I'm like, I have to explain this?
Yeah. Look, the problem is that the hobby has aged with us.
Yes.
And the younger generation never expressed an interest in it to the level our generation had.
Well, they had other distractions.
They're into other things that we didn't have available to us. So now the model kit companies come out with, so many new kits a year. They produce less of them. They sell less of them. And guys like us on the channel, we spend more time finding kits in flea markets, in,
just wherever.
alternate channels.
Yeah.
As opposed to going to a hobby store, because there aren't that many hobby stores around.
No, they're very few.
And
The
rest of it you buy online.
Now,
or you buy it on eBay.
Eric just asked a question about the Aurora train wreck. Here's what I'll tell you what I know. When I did the Aurora history video, I actually went to the Federal Railway. It's part of the NTSB, I think. It's it was FRM website, which has supposed to have every derailment and train wreck recorded, right? I could not find, and I looked around the dates that had happened. I could not find that actual train wreck. But what I think happened, my guess is it was probably, and I'm inferring this, it was probably a braking mishap, a braking derailment. A lot of people don't know this, but in a train, one of the primary causes of derailments is braking too quickly. And, the cars start, banging into one another, taking up all the slack in the couplers. And it doesn't take much for a heavier car to hit a lighter car, and they jump a rail, and then they just take everything off with them. Now, it must have been reasonably violent because cargo left the box cars, which means they hit hard enough for the doors to slide open and hard enough to expel whatever was stacked inside. Something heavy like molds on a train would not be strapped down. Okay, it would just, gravity would hold it in place. I do know that the Era Commander mold, the old Comet mold, was one of them that went into the mud because Pete and Rick found it, and it was twisted and it still had mud in it from the wreck. But Monogram already had a list of they had a triage plan set up, and the wreck didn't change that. Some of the molds were never recovered. Now, it's so long ago, nobody knows why. It could be they got tossed a long way, went down in the mud, and nobody found them. Or it could have been, quite frankly, they figured the molds were just, Monogram was really just buying them to keep anybody else from getting them, and they didn't care. They didn't look that hard. So, who knows?
it was in the winter.
And it was in the winter. Was it October or December?
Yeah, it was in the winter. It was, the conditions weren't good, and the molds got tossed. A bunch of them got broken. Some of them were buried in the mud, and they were buried there so long that by the time they dug them out, they were all pitted, and they needed to be redone, and they just tossed them.
And don't forget,
and they sold them for scrap.
A mold can weigh hundreds of pounds. I mean, you go to the Atlantis channel. They have some pictures in there of the backroom operation, and you see Rick there on a forklift picking the molds up.
You have to lift them up with a forklift. They're too heavy.
So that thing goes 40, 50, 60 miles an hour out of a train door, hits soft mud. It's going to hit it like a cannonball, and it's just a miracle no one was hurt. But anyway, when they got them, the ones that they recovered, when they got them to Monogram, they had one. They triaged them, and they said, "Okay, these are the ones we want to put in our line." So they looked at one over the molds, decided if it was worth doing it or not. I think they wanted the KB World War I models. They wanted the Battleship Missouri, a few others. I mean, you can go and see what Aurora kits became Monogram kits. Superman, Godzilla, a couple others. Then they had the ones that they were going to consider keeping, and they triaged them. And then they had the ones they knew they weren't going to take. They had no interest in. I don't think they bothered to triage them. They just put them aside. To their credit, and Pete talked about this when they got the molds at Atlantis, the guys at Aurora, Monogram, had very professionally packed everything and kept it climate controlled because it was a professional operation. So when they got the molds, they were in excellent condition. Yeah, if you could find the site, got the metal detector, maybe find a couple of them. Yeah, they did. I think Monica John Ashley Smith. I think they did the two fighters. There was a Draconian fighter and the thing that Buck flew around in, and the Earth Force fighter. And everybody always thought that was such a cool looking fighter. And I was like, I don't know, looks like a half built car kit that they stuck some fins on the bottom of, but whatever. I always thought the coolest looking space fighter was the X-wing. Although I like the Y-wing also, the Hawker Hurricane of space. And I think the TIE fighters are pretty cool. But I don't know, what do you guys think is the coolest space fighter out there? And that's about all I know about the rail. And a lot of that is stuff I could pick off of other people's websites that would mention it. I don't know how good their source of information was. And by the way, somebody was asking about the background light. I got the little astronaut going. If I put my hand in front of you, see it puts a shadow over it. So it's over there blasting up against the wall behind me. I got a box cutting some of it off, or else these little green dots will be all over my face.
Well, the crowd here just made a comment about, even Hobby Lobby is a hobby store. I don't consider Hobby Lobby a true hobby store for a couple of reasons. Number one, they never change the assortment. They do not put in new kits when they're introduced. They're basically a retailer that has a hobby aisle.
Yeah.
That's it.
But unfortunately for a lot of people, that's as close as they're going to get. By the way, looping back to that, you were talking about us looking for old kits and everything. There are a lot. You guys are asking about, will the tariffs affect models? Right now, it looks, except for a few companies, no. A bunch of the companies like India, and where a lot of the models are made, the Airfix and everything, their countries are playing nice. So I think there's been a knee-jerk reaction, but that's mainly hitting RCs because that crap is made in China. But the kit models, except for a few of them that are made in China exclusively, then it might not be that much of a problem. I'd also point out that I'm not sure how companies that do the grunt work in China, but they're American companies or British companies or Polish, well, the Poles do it in Poland. It won't have any effect on Revell Germany because they're all getting on board, and their stuff's made in Poland anyway.
It's all done in Poland.
So, I really...
Meanwhile, round two will have a problem.
What? Because a lot of stuff's made in China?
Because all their stuff is done in China.
But because they're an American company, they may not be paying the high tariffs. I don't know. I got a feeling, I hope, that after everybody's done with the chest beating, that they'll everything's going to calm down. Everybody will play ball, and everything will resume and get back, to the new normal.
What my suggestion would be is, if there's something that you want and it's in the store now and you could afford it, I'd buy it now.
Oh, that would be a
Because
hedge.
you don't know.
Now, I could be completely off the mark here. I absolutely could be completely off the mark.
Because if it goes the other way, you could be looking at this stuff being 40% more. Yeah. Because everything will go up. Shipping costs will go up as well as the tariffs.
But
so if there's something that you see now that's made over there and you want it and you could afford it, this would be the time to pick it up because you don't know which way it's going to go.
Alfred's asking about the group build schedule. Yeah, personally, and I hope I'm right on this, I don't think we're going to see it's going to have that much of an impact on us. I'd hate to be proven wrong, but wouldn't be the first time. Let's see, build schedule, updated build schedule. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, right now we're doing the D-Day build. That's got to be in by the 5th of June. After that will be the Dream Car build due in July. Wild West build in September. Nostalgia build, first model you remember building, in November. Navy Jets in January of 26. Russian build in March of 26. Copy. And let me add that to the comments, to the description. Let's see, go here. Blah 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 blah. YouTube. Go to Max's Models, and yes, I have to sign into Max's Models like everybody else. Manage videos. Alive. It's alive. Hit the edit button. Let me go enter this right here. Save. All right, you guys should have the build schedule down in the description section now. And I got to get to work on that little Kugelwagen. But Walmart, yeah. Walmart, not only, you guys may not know this, but Kmart actually had its own dedicated kit model line for about 2 years. That was a bunch of Revell guys got together and knocked out some old molds for them. Was it Advent? Was that the name of it? And
Yes.
they only lasted about 2 years, kind of a company within a company. But they were told Revell management, hey, we got all these kits over here that aren't doing anything. These molds over here. We could bang it. We get a contract with Kmart, and just sell it to them. And they were the only ones that I think that carried Advent.
They used to do huge business in model kits, Kmart.
Yeah.
I mean, it was amazing how they had a dedicated section in every store. They rotated the kits on a regular basis, quarterly when new stuff came out. They did a ton of business.
Well, I hate to say this because I'm a model airplane guy primarily, but if I was going to go in the kit model business, if you really want to make money, you got to start with cars because that's still the bulk of the. And as you pointed out on numerous occasions, NASCAR, which is super popular, you can make a dozen kits with a single body just by changing the decals.
Yep.
And
that's the secret to Salvino's success.
Yeah, you know what? We do need a Kaiju Bill Garfield. I need to add that into the mix. And SS Kresge. Man, that's going back a ways when Kmart was Kresge. Kresge Mart.
Toys R Us used to sell model kits.
Oh my gosh. Have a blue light specialty.
Special.
I mean, Kmart was such a part of American culture. There were jokes about it that we're not going to tell here, but it was a meme before there were memes, and Kmart, my God, and then Walmart, and I couldn't believe when I heard that Kmart was going bankrupt. How can Kmart go bankrupt? And then Sears and Montgomery Ward and Woolk and some of these companies have been around over a century. But
because they didn't figure out the internet.
Well, Woolco was gone before the internet killed it.
Wait, Sears and Penny's. Nobody had a better distribution channel than they did. They sold by catalog for 75 years.
I remember that.
They had the whole thing figured out. They didn't come on board with the internet. And when companies went online and took their business, that's what killed them.
Well, some of them, like Woolco, were gone before that. And there was one, they used to have a hardbound catalog, 2-volume. I think it was Bennett Brothers or Bennett's. But they had on the back of these hardbound, I remember my mom had those, on the back of these hardbound encyclopedia-looking catalogs, they had pictures of their 3 major outlets, like New York, Chicago, and maybe San Francisco. They were very proud of that. We're going back to the 60s here. But, get it from Bennett Brothers. I think it was Bennett Brothers. But, and every year, 2 new ones would show up at the house. I mean, these are hardbound books. And then you went to, I remember going with my mom to Sears, which was just about a little strip mall thing, but she would go through the catalog, and Kmart had its layaway plan and all that stuff, and I was just
Sears had layaway,
But the whole,
I mean, look at the retail landscape. Look what's not there anymore that was powerful. Service merchandise is gone. Radio Shack is gone.
Circuit City's gone.
What
was that other big electronics store? There were several of them, actually. And
what's that?
I was trying to remember that other big electronics chain, but there were so many of them, I guess. But
the regional Montgomery Wards.
I remember Monkey Wards and Woolco, and Woolco had a good model selection. And
I mean, Woolworths. I have ads from magazines in a frame that Woolworths used to run with Revell selling model kits at Woolworths stores.
Yep.
And they were dime stores.
Oh, you had Christos and McCrory's. I didn't realize that the Christos and McCrory's in my hometown were part of a chain. Yeah, we're talking about Radio Shack. Radio Shack was the last place you could actually buy components. That's where I got the internal lights that I put into my Starship Enterprise. I went and bought them and wired them up and soldered and everything. And Ken helped me with that because they
Wendell
were LEDs.
just jumped in with fries out on the West Coast.
What's that?
I mean, Fry's.
I think that may have been the one I was thinking
Electronics
of.
Superstore.
Yeah.
They just demolished the Fry's store in Burbank, which was the last standing store. And each store had a different theme. They were very unique. The one in Burbank was an alien UFO attack. And they had
I think I remember seeing that on some documentary. Yes. Yeah.
They had
The flying
saucer that looked like it crashed into the front of over the door.
Yeah.
And when you went in, there were aliens all up on top of the fixtures with ray guns and Jeeps that were exploded. And when you went in the back of the store where all the big screen TVs were, you entered a flying saucer. That was the room that had all the TVs.
By the way, Stuart Gregory was pointing out Blockbuster, at one point could have got Netflix for a song, and they didn't. And what I love about that is the second biggest screw up. The biggest screw up was, I think it was in the 30s, Coca-Cola had a chance to buy out Pepsi for next to nothing. And their attitude was, why should we buy you out? We can just, run you under. Well, how did that work out for you? And, yeah, I tell you what, we have all these, but it's hard to believe that these juggernaut industries, but then again, when I was a kid, if you told me that Pan Am and Eastern and TWA, would all go away.
Right, yeah.
And not Pan Am, not Eastern, they'll be around forever. I saw 2001, Pan Am was flying the shuttle into space.
Yeah.
Silent Running was American Airlines, but they're still here. But no airline will survive if they hire Bruce Dern. And now the Bay is going down to 6 stores. Jeez. Yeah. Oh, when was the last? I don't even know if they're still around. When was the last time anybody built a Heath kit?
No, that went with Radio Shack.
Ah.
That was their sort of. That was their. They started out with Tandy, and then Heathkit was one of the brands they had.
I
the
remember
best part about Radio Shack was you needed a transistor. You needed a tube. You needed a capacitor. They had it.
I remember when I was 16, because I was driving, I would babysit the 3 kids for one of our church deacons, and Heath Kit is still around. Make a couple of radio kits. I guess they mail order or something. But anyway, Western Auto. Oh my God, the guy who bought our store from my mom after my dad died was the guy who ran the local Western Auto. And where I'm from, that's what we called it, Western Auto. But anyway, he had this nice color TV, and it was built into the wall. And you open the door, like under the stairs, you could see all the electronics. And I was like, how'd you get that TV like that? He goes, oh, I built it. And when you built it, he goes, yeah, it was a Heath kit.
Yeah.
That was where I first heard of it. And I said, how much did that cost? He goes, about $80. Now, this is back when a color TV was $400. I mean, we're talking about like 1977, right? And color televisions were not cheap, and they were heavy as heck. And I was like, you built a TV for $80? After that, I thought, man, that is the coolest thing since pockets. And so I never built a Heath kit, but I made sure to learn about them. Ham radios are still very much around. But unfortunately, getting licensed for one is a major pain in the keister.
Look at it this way, Nathan. The little cell phone you're holding is more powerful than the computer that was in the Apollo spaceship that went to the moon.
But remember this. A ham radio, unlike a cell phone, a ham radio doesn't require a network of towers. You can talk to the International Space Station as it passes overhead. It's just as powerful as your transmitter and your antenna. And you can make some pretty impressive ham radio setups that are completely... The only thing you got to have is an electrical source. So as long as you got gas in a generator or somebody who can ride the heck out of an exercise bike, you're communicating. What? Oh, well, John Ashley Smith, happy birthday. Or let's see, I have my brother say, well, happy birthday to your brother. Happy 65th. Well, guys, it's 9 o'clock. It's that time. And sorry Mark couldn't get back with us. I hope we didn't chase him off. I guess, yeah, I knew he had something. I knew he had something going on at the house, so I guess it. Glad
he went to conspire with Ken behind our back.
Mark, thanks thanks for coming out and spending some time with us. We appreciate it. And well, I guess it's just you and me saying goodnight tonight.
Well, good night, John Boy, and good night, everybody. Thanks for spending another Saturday evening with us, and we look forward to doing it again.
Good night, Mary Ellen. Guys, you take care of yourselves. Thanks for coming out, and as always, model on.